This was Bleakin.
So when you were 3 or so, your father passed away?
4.
You were 4?
I was 4.
And how old was your brother?
12.
And your sister was
2.
2. What happened after that?
My mother became a widow, and my dad had just built a brand new house, a real nice house in Abilene. And we had the old house over on Pecan Street where we lived before that. And he had some apartments. That's Andrew. Hello? Yeah, this is Darnell. Tomorrow? Okay. That's okay with me. Thank you. Southwest Exterminator will be here tomorrow. Oh, yeah.
But one time you told me that you remember being born.
I do.
What do you remember?
Well, I was on that little house on Con Street in Abilene, and what I remember is the noise and the light really bothered me, and so I really squalled. When I was born, I started squalling, and then the doctor did his thing. He spotted me, and I stopped. Doctor, can't remember his name, but he was the same guy that delivered me. Well, he delivered me, and then he took care of me later on.
But unfortunately, your dad did pass away.
Oh yeah, one day he was came home from work around noon. He was a builder and built hundreds and hundreds of houses and buildings. And one day, I remember it, he came home and told my mother, said, I really got a stomachache, really bad. And so he lay down on the bed, and it just was so bad, she took him to the hospital, and it was a ruptured appendix.
Oh.
And when he got to the hospital, it was too late. It ruptured, and they killed him.
Oh, wow.
What a shame.
I guess I never knew what it was.
Yeah.
We all have good appendix so far.
Yeah. Well, we take care of him if you have trouble. He waited too long.
What'd your brother do? Do you remember?
Well, he was going to school, and then my mother was very shaky when she became a widow like that. She didn't know what to do, and so she figured she had to probably work, and she had the big house to take care of and the little house that I was born in. So she moved back to the little house and rented out the big house. And my brother was 12 years old, so he was helping her a lot with the things that one could do. And they did their stuff, and I was a little bitty kid at home causing trouble. And I think that my grandmother took care of my little sister a lot, because she was just a baby.
Did your kids have any injuries or anything during those times?
Well, during that time when I was about 4, I'd say about within a year or two, I was out in the yard playing, and they were digging a storm cellar in the backyard next door. And so I didn't know anything about heights, and so I jumped in it and broke my leg.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And when I broke my leg, it hurt like everything.
Yeah.
And I squalled. My brother picked me up, carried me home. My mother got the doctor, the same doctor that delivered me. He came out and set my leg.
Do you remember which leg?
No. I don't remember which leg it was.
I
remember jumping in a hole.
Yeah. So your mother went on and...
Well, she kept on
Grandma.
trying to make a living and take care of 3 kids, and so she rented out the new house, and we lived in the old house. And then a lady and her little boy came and lived with us, and the little boy was about my age, and I guess they were paying a fee because it was for money. And my mother, so she lived with us, and my mother worked whatever she did, and she did that for a while and took care of us. And somewhere along that line, my grandmother and granddad always came and got me in the summertime, and so I would go spend the summer with my grandparents. So one of those years, probably the first year or two, well, 2 years after my dad died, I went to spend the summer with my grandmother. And when I was on that, while I was up there, my mother came after me with a boy named Bob Priest, and she told us that she was married to Mr. Priest. This was his son.
How old were you about?
Well, I was another year older then, about 5, yeah. And so I had a step-parent, and this Bob Priest was the son of Mr. Priest. And when I got back home, there was that Mr. Priest and his 3 boys.
Oh.
That Bob and Lloyd and Richard. Disaster. And my mother had started a little grocery store on the corner, and kind of like a 7-Eleven is now, and was making a living doing that. And we lived in a house next door, which we rented, 2 bedrooms, and that man moved in with us with those 3 boys. We were crowded. Mr. Priest, he was a ne'er-do-well. He took advantage of my mother. She lived with him about 2 months and moved out and took everything, moved to her mother's house, grandmother, Atkinson. And we got down there, and old Mr. Priest followed her down there and put up a tent in the backyard and started sleeping out there with his boys. He was a really scrounge.
Crazy, huh? Well, when you started going to school, where did you go?
Well, that was around 1st or 2nd Street in Childress, Texas. The school, Woodrow Wilson Elementary, was down there about 5 blocks down the street, walking distance. So when school started, that's where I started. And the first day of school, my mother took me to school, and we walked down there, and when we went in the room, there was I believe it was Mrs. Woods, and Mother knew her way back. They were friends. So I met her, and I was assigned a seat and started school. The second day, I went by myself, and I went in that room, and I looked around. I didn't know what I was doing. I went over and got my seat, and I was in the wrong place. I was in the 2nd grade. I didn't know and so I was sitting there in that seat, and all that stuff was really strange to me, and they started asking questions. And when the teacher asked me a couple of questions, she said, Robert, I believe you're in the wrong room. And sure enough, I was in the 2nd grade room, and she took me down to the 1st grade room.
What a memory, huh? You have a great memory.
Oh, yeah, I remember all that stuff.
So that was 1st grade?
Yeah.
Kindergarten?
That 1st grade. That was 1st grade at Woodrow Wilson High School, Elementary.
Did you go there the whole
I went there
time?
the first 5 years. Yeah.
What happened after 5 years?
5 years, I went to Sweetwater in the summer to visit my grandmother. She always sent for me in the summer, Grandmother Darnell.
Oh, yeah, what about Grandma Darnell?
So I went down for a summer visit, and when summer was over, they decided to keep me for school. So I went to Sweetwater Junior High School, John H. Reagan Junior High School in Sweetwater in the 6th grade.
Uh-huh.
And I had a very good year.
I bet. You were a new kid,
Well, it was just a really good school, and I did real well.
You were a natural.
Something went good. I learned how to play tennis in those years. I played tennis and softball. All that kind of stuff was coming on for a kid.
You played football back then?
We played touch football.
Touch football.
You called it touch.
It wasn't anything like now where they have the big teams.
Well, they had them, but I didn't play. I wasn't old enough for that. They had those up in high school and up higher up, yeah.
You know, I started playing football when I was 8 years old.
Yeah. Well, we started throwing the ball around when you could first walk.
When I came out of the womb,
yeah.
When I came out and was born, I threw a ball at you.
Yeah.
At the doctor.
Yeah. We through?
For that one.